Dear viewers, you're welcome to this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. High crime wave is gaining grounds in Limbe and other parts of the two Anglophone regions of the country as the Anglophone crisis deepens further, and a veteran journalist and political analyst Eric Echinje says the crisis has stayed too long and solutions should be provided immediately before things get out of hand. You will hear him in this newscast. And while students are taking part in the 2019 session of the General Certificate of Education GC Ordinary and Advanced levels, as well as the Baccalaureate examination in the English and French subsystems of education respectively, some 15 students here in the economic capital of Cameroon, Douala, are not taking part in the examination. They went protesting today as a result of problems that occurred in the process of their registration, and their names are not on the list of candidates. Crime wave is on the rise in Limbe in the southwest region of Cameroon, as well as other parts of the two Anglophone regions hit by socio-political and security crisis for close to 3 years now. Local authorities in the town of Limbe, notably the paramount chief of Limbe, are now taking some measures with vigilante committees that have been put in place in order to curb the rising insecurity and crime wave in that town. Details with Davidson Maimo.
Limbe being the only city or town in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon to be having relative calm as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned, is home of hundreds of internally displaced persons from the northwest region and part of the southwest region. The precarious conditions some of the internally displaced persons, especially women and children, are living is a call for concern. It is in this regard that the paramount chief-elect of Limbe, John Efufa Manga Williams, and his council are stepping in to provide assistance in sheltering some of the IDPs, especially those who are mostly vulnerable as the rainy season is already at the corner.
We cannot stay indifferent to the sufferings of our fellow brothers and sisters, thanks to no fault of theirs. In this regard, therefore, I have created a temporary shelter for such displaced persons, whereby they can stay for a short period of time before moving on.
The paramount chief say Limbe is seriously threatened by the ongoing Anglophone crisis, with crime waves on the rise.
I found a way to make easy money, attacking people at night, even during the day, as early as 6 p.m. And of course, we are attending meetings with the criminal officer, insisting on the issue of vigilante groups. It helps us because at the quarters we know everybody, and so when this can come, you can easily know that this person is not of this quarter. We would like to know what you are doing in this quarter at such a time.
Speaking to the press, the paramount chief-elect continued to say despite Limbe being a cosmopolitan city, there is need for the indigenous children to learn the vernacular, which is seriously threatened by modernity.
Which will handle the three main dialects of this kingdom, that is the Sulu, the Bakweri, and the Botat. These classes, of course, will be free and will run from the 1st to the 31st of July 2019.
Everything being equal, the Palace of Limbe, though having a structure to host the IDPs already provided by the Cameroon Baptist Education Board, the benevolence of people of goodwill in supporting the project shall definitely be needed in realizing the initiative from the paramount chief-elect of Limbe.
A veteran journalist and political analyst Eric Echinje sees the Anglophone crisis as overstayed, and it is time for everyone to put hands on deck to find solutions before things get out of hand, notably with regards to the devastating and deadly consequences of the crisis on human life and properties.
It's 3 years too long for a crisis of this nature to continue. Every day is one day too many for this crisis. We have to find a solution. We should stop talking. We should stop debating. We should stop wondering why is the army there? Why is the army not there? Why are militias being created all over this part of the country? Let's move to stop this crisis. And I am certain that if we all enter the mode of crisis management, if everyone in this country became aware of the need to end the crisis, if Cameroonians knew that every day this crisis continues, it takes a toll on the economy, on the prospects, on the diplomatic status of this country, if they knew that every day of this crisis affects everybody across the country. There are things this government cannot do because it has to spend time on, empowering the army, on buying arms that we do not produce. If all of us knew, if you know that that crisis is having a true impact on you, if you can convince yourself about that, you will fight for a solution. That is why I'm not asking for a solution because I am from the Northwest or the Southwest. I'm asking for a solution because I am a member of this society, this country, that wants a solution that helps everybody.
And one of the persons who have been very vocal concerning the Anglophone crisis is no more. Barrister Celestin Kengum was laid to rest today at the Bois de Saints Cemetery here in the economic capital, Douala. He died recently of ill health in India, and while speaking during his burial today on behalf of the Cameroon Bar Association, Tumfor Barrister Nico Hale highlighted his statements and his involvement in the efforts to bring lasting solutions to the Anglophone crisis. He indicated that he spent much of his time talking about the Anglophone crisis, the poor management of the crisis, and possible solutions to the Anglophone crisis. He qualified him as a colossus of legal profession, spirituality, dynamism, peace, love, and justice. Take a listen to Tumfor Barrister Nico Hale.
When all is said and done for you and me, we are answerable to our Father, to the Almighty. In fact, when I chatted yesterday with our bâtonnier, our current bâtonnier, Chakonte, Patti, Charles, we both agreed that we have lost a colossus of the profession, a colossus of spirituality, a colossus of dynamism, a colossus of kindness, peace, love, justice. The gentleman stood for justice and said it all the time when he had occasion. If this gentleman had a way, he would have solved the Anglophone crisis. If he had his way, he would have. Because this is a crisis that was caused by irresponsibility. How many of us sacrifice our means, our time, our talent to talk about the Anglophone crisis? Very poorly handled from the beginning and continues to be poorly handled by us Cameroonians. And he said it several times, and I'm repeating what he said. I'm not talking about you. You didn't go to the field. But remember, your pronouncements, a pronouncement from a top officer in this nation can bind the nation. We should be very careful because we are not, there is no security for any of us.
That was for Barrister Nico Hale, former president of the Bar General Assembly, speaking on behalf of the Bar Association at the burial of Celeste Kengum, member of the Cameroon Bar Association, who died recently in India of ill health. Now, on to something else. The phenomenon of kidnapping and demanding of ransom is gradually going down or slowing down in Belel in the Adamawa region of the country, and this is due to heightened security by the head of state. Defense Minister Joseph Petit Somo was recently in that part of the country for that purpose. Details with Innocent Azi.
Frequent reports on kidnappings and ransom demanding in Belel in the Adamawa region has gone viral for a very short period. For a while now, calm has been witnessed following the security measures taken by the head of state through the Ministry of Defense. Abu Abubakar, the mayor of Belel, thanks the head of state for what he has done in a period of 3 months. Security has returned and no abduction case has been reported. But this return to normalcy, the local authorities note, should not cause forces of law and order go to slumber or relax, but vice versa. Joseph Betia Somo in the Adamawa region urged the security and defense elements to multiply vigilance.
Si nous avons l'ennemi à l'intérieur, dans les rangs, dans les villages.
The Defense Boss has prescribed collaboration of the population with local vigilante groups and forces of law and order as best remedy for insecurity in the region. The population on their part have called on hierarchies to help them. Firstly, they should continue their action. Secondly, see into the situation of those who have lost their properties or anything so that they can restart life somewhere. While in the Adamawa region, Minister Joseph Betia Somo assured the construction of the Ngaoundiri Parcours Vita by the military engineering unit.
Parce que nous avons déjà fait quand même 3 parcours Vita qui sont fonctionnels jusqu'au jour d'aujourd'hui.
We have already constructed 3 parcours Vitas that are already functional today. When we embark on a project, we do it for a cheaper cost, rapidly and well, unlike that of Douala. They will as well be well secured as they operate.
De la ville de Ngaoundiri qui mettront certainement à l'intérieur du parcours Vita du personnel adéquat pour assurer la sécurité.
The military engineering unit has reassured latest June 2019 the Ngaoundiri Parcours Vita will go operational.
Some 15 students of a Lee private school, which featured on the list of clandestine schools before the start of the 2018-2019 academic year, have missed the first 2 days of the written part of the General Certificate of Education GC ordinary and advanced levels, and of course they are not taking part in the examination because their names are not on the list of candidates. The registration fee was allegedly embezzled by authorities of that school at Bois-de-Senche here in the Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Details with Fomi Armstrong Sanda.
15 in number, they are students of Victory Bilingual College, Bois-de-Senche in Douala, Cameroon, and candidates of the 2019 GCE Ordinary and Advanced level, who have missed at day 1 and day 2 of the written part of the examination.
He received money for registration, but he didn't register us.
We were just worried that we never paid our registration fee. The money was paid to our principal, and then it was January that I was registered.
The shock of the reality came to the students at the supposed writing center, where they were tagged as unknown candidates and chased away from the examination center.
We went to our center yesterday that we were supposed to write. He gave some people the personal timetable, but he didn't give us, and they said they don't know us in the school, that we do not register there.
Even before the D-Day, the candidates asked questions to the school principal and proprietor, which did not receive a clear response.
When we paid our registration money, our principal was telling us that he's going to give our timetable, but he was always wasting time. So on Friday we asked him that can he give us our timetable. He said no, we should wait and come to the school where we are writing in Itek at Aqua. So he will give us. When we arrived there, he gave only for science students.
Discipline master told us that we were to go to Boya to visit, but look for me that we will write vaccines. It failed.
Whereas they duly paid the registration fee.
We registered at January ending towards February. We registered to our principal. I paid 25,000 francs because I'm offering 10 subjects.
To better understand what happened, Equinox Radio and Television went to Bois de Senche in Douala to meet the school proprietor, who refused to comment further than promising legal measures against the school principal, though he claimed not to know the principal's whereabouts. Contacted on phone, the school principal said he was at the GCE board in Boya, southwest region of Cameroon.
I'm in Boya now. We are going to the GCE board to verify. Now we are waiting for the register of GCE board.
Worried and frustrated, candidates accompanied by their parents said they want nothing but to sit the exams they register.
As you are seeing me like this, I'm angry. Because the principal and the proprietor of the school, I'm talking to them. I've paid my child's school fees. The first installment was 50,000, the second installment was 45,000. I've already paid it. And the examination fee was 23,000 francs, which I have the receipt. I like the receipt home, I've shown it. I'm very, very angry. I'm crying where the children are going. I'm calling for President Paul Biya, that where I am, he should look for this solution because I will not allow it like that. See, yesterday, I'm having a headache.
Moving helplessly from one end of the city of Douala to the other, while their mates are busy writing, the unfortunate candidates are crying for help from the powers that be in order not to miss out on GCA 2019, which they sacrificed a lot for.
In Garoua and other parts of Francophone Cameroon, the examinations, GCE and Baccalaureate, are unfolding hitch-free. We visited some centers in Garoua. It's Magic and Gabriel Hasmo.
It was a calm government bilingual high school Garoua that we met on day 2 of examination. The compound is as quiet as a graveyard, with all students concentrated on their papers. Government Bilingual High School Garoua is hosting the Baccalaureate and GCE examinations, and the chief of center says all is going on well this far.
Présentement, jusqu'à cette heure-ci,
we've had no major problem this far. Some cases of absenteeism were recorded, but not very significant. The exams secretariat has been increased due to the increase in number of students. The only difficulty is that we had to borrow an institution for students to write since the number had increased.
Cela nous a obligés de faire recours à un site d'emprunt, notamment le collège Sainte-Thérèse qui est en face de nous. Nous avons eu à solliciter quelques salles là-bas.
In the classrooms where students of GCE are writing, Equinox TV was also told nothing has happened this far negatively.
Everything has started very well so far. We have not had any incidents. All the candidates are there, but for few cases that we are sure that they are absent at this point in time because we can no longer accept them into the exam hall. So everything is going on smoothly. The invigilators are also around and they are doing their work well. Everything is available. All the materials for the examination are available.
Apart from GBHS Garoua, Lycée Classique Modern of Garoua is also another center that is hosting 1,048 candidates sitting in for the baccalaureate examination. On day 1, the chief of center told us just 8 persons were absent, but since then, no particular problem faced by students and invigilators working in this center.
Illegal and indiscriminate logging remains a major problem and a serious threat to wood in Africa and, of course, the continent's forests and environment. And this is why experts from the different Central African countries are meeting here in the economic capital, Douala, to map out strategies to ensure a sustainable exploitation of the continent's wood. Immaculate Fogui.
Facts and figures from the United Nations organization reveal that commercial logging is the second largest contributor to deforestation in Africa, threatening the continent's forest, ecosystem, and in some cases, its political stability. Environmentalists and forestry experts say part of the problem is the common use of clear cutting and other unsound methods that strip large areas of trees and vegetation. United Nations and non-governmental researchers report that the indiscriminate labor-intensive methods common to logging in Central Africa and other developing regions waste as many as half of the trees cut down through destruction of non-commercial varieties and clearing of forest land for roads, logging camps, and work areas.
We have three kinds of bottlenecks to move to sustainable forest management. The first one, it is a poor governance. And the second is at the social level, because many communities are not truly involved in the forest sector and they don't benefit of forest outcomes. And the third bottleneck, it is at economic level. So far, economic sector contribute not massively in the gross product domestic in our countries.
Meeting in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, experts and stakeholders from Central African countries are discussing solutions to the problem of illegal and indiscriminate logging.
We need to improve our governance by destroying this bottleneck. So we should take communities into account and to move forward with them together. We can improve wood processing and create more added value for product.
Meantime, it is estimated that logging concessions in Central Africa's primary forest cover an area equal to the size of Spain, and that deforestation could release more than 34 billion tons of carbon into the atmosphere by 2050.
Talking Point is up next. We are receiving Wana Emmanuel Bumako. He is an expert in international relations. You're welcome.
Thank you, Babula Jonathan.
You've been closely following up what has been happening in the two Anglophone regions of the country, and you are an expert in international relations. What's your take on in international involvement in the crisis? Up to this point in time, we have heard statements coming from the European Union, coming from US officials, coming from even the UN and so on. And recently, the United Nations Security Council met in an informal meeting. What's your take on the involvement of the international community in the crisis?
We live in a global world today where people can't ignore what is going on around the world, because when you have humanitarian crisis occurring and there are international organizations, either governmental or non-governmental, who are there to make sure that people respect human rights, respect civil citizens manifestations and all of those things. So they give reports, and the degrading situation of the situation in the Northwest and Southwest makes people to call for attention, because when there's any humanitarian crisis taking place in any country, it affects other countries, and there's a need for some sort of consultation to see how this crisis can be resolved. This was the case with the Boko Haram, where the international community in 2013-2014 came together to assist Cameroon to fight against Boko Haram. But the issue of the Northwest and Southwest, the international community has discovered that the army is fighting a war against its own people and is not protecting its own people, and that is a need in one way or the other for the international community to intervene, because they think it's a problem, because international organizations, the European Union, United States of America, and other many countries have said that this is a problem that can best be resolved through an inclusive dialogue. And the government has not been able to give a satisfactory response in order to end the crisis. And that's why the international community is compelled in one way or the other to see how it can intervene to protect the lives of citizens who are dying in the Northwest and Southwest.
As you indicated some few seconds ago, the international community, with reports coming from international non-governmental organizations as well, and even institutions pointing accusing fingers towards elements of the national armed forces who, like you said, are fighting a war, according to the international community, against the people. But I should mention that the authorities have mentioned and have emphasized on several occasions that the army is professional and is not doing any of those things that have been accused of.
That's why I said the response of the government has not been satisfactory, because reports which have come from, it's important to recall that the government signed international conventions on human rights and civil liberties in the country. And so it is the responsibility of the government to make sure that human rights of citizens are respected. So international organizations have the role to make sure, to some sort of surveillance, to make sure that these states who have signed this convention respect them. And when they don't respect them, they have to report now to international organizations like the United Nations, European Union, and even the regional organization, the African Union. And the response of the government has not been satisfactory, because what we are seeing on the field last week, we saw a baby, of a 4-year-old baby, who was killed, and the government came and said they are not the ones responsible, whereas the other side is saying, the family is saying that they are the soldiers. There have been many cases, several cases like that, and this has made the international community to ask themselves what can resolve this conflict, because there has been some sort of escalation of the conflict since it started 3 years ago, when lawyers started marching and teachers were protesting against the marginalization of the Anglophones.
With regards to the gravity of the problem, some have been calling for sanctions to be imposed on some Cameroonian authorities.
Yes, because as I said, it was in. We have seen cases like this in other countries. We have seen what happened in Yugoslavia, that is now Kosovo. We have seen what happened in Rwanda, where more than close to 1 million people were slaughtered through a genocide. And so the United Nations adopted a policy in 2005 called the Responsibility to Protect, where it decided that the government's responsibility is to protect its citizens from war crimes, genocide, and atrocities. And if the government is not able to respond, that is to protect its people, the international community has that responsibility to come and assist the government in the first place, to assist the government to protect the citizen, or intervene to make sure that the citizens of the countries are protected. And that's what happened in Libya. Sometimes when the international community intervenes, it becomes an issue of international politics. So it is important for the government to understand that sovereignty has evolved. Sovereignty is no longer an issue of one state, but sovereignty is an issue of protecting its citizens. And when it fails to do that, the international community notices that it is incapable of protecting the citizen, and they have the right to intervene. It does the same thing in Libya. That's what happened in Libya, and that's what is going on in Syria. Though the United Nations, through the veto policy, Russia has placed its veto on making the United Nations to be unable to intervene in Syria.
Can the solution come from outside, the solution of this crisis?
The solutions will never come from outside. It's important to recall that once it's especially because it's the United Nations Security Council, that's the responsibility to restore peace and restore security in the world. And once it is at the United Nations Security Council, it is now international politics that comes into play. And the superpowers with the right of the veto can use it for their own interests. So it is important for all national actors to come together. If the government is responsible, to see into it that they can dialogue and look for a way out of this conflict.
Dialogue without a taboo?
Yes, dialogue with no conditions, no preconditions. Everybody must dialogue, and dialogue is an opportunity for each actors to understand themselves and come to a compromise.
Thanks so much, Wana Emmanuel Bumako. You are an expert in international relations. Thanks for coming.
Yes, it's my pleasure.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us.